seconding you. Yep.
All right, well, I just wanted to first thank everyone for coming and for their patience in this. We're going to start, the mayor's just going to say a few words and then we'll get into the meat of this. Okay.
The dispatchers, Stephanie and her group, and the officers that were also involved in trying to stop Mr. Richards. Especially I'd like to thank Officers Elsie, Gibson, Wellborn, and also to Investigator Stonecipher. All were involved in this incident. I also would like to add that we realize here at City Hall that this was a very tragic situation for Mr. Richards' family and for his friends, and we do sympathize with their pain. This was a terrible situation for everyone involved. Obviously, an officer never wants to be put in the situation of having to take another life. I commend all of the first responders working that day. The officers, their families, and this community, all of Fairbanks, have to deal with the aftermath of these types of events. And the best that we can do is to come together as a community to support one another. And again, I really thank Chief Jewkes. The presentation you're going to see is professional, and I commend him for all of his hard work. Thank you very much.
So before we get started on the actual video, we're just going to talk a little bit about what we're going to see and what we're not going to see. And again, I want to thank everybody for their patience. We are putting this on our Facebook page. Not that we want to glorify this, but at this point it is public information. We want to share this with people who have an interest in it, and we want to make all the facts available as best we can. And so the information is there, and people will be able to see it if they choose to. To go over a little bit of the facts, we provided the media here with some facts about the case, but since some people won't be able to see that, we're dealing with the shooting of James Richards by the Fairbanks Police Department. That was on August 30th, about 1:40 in the afternoon. The incident started at 1546 Cushman Street, which is the Alaska Motel, and progressed down the Cushman Street corridor, ending near the Prospector Outfitter store, again on Cushman Street. So again, we have the printed material that we made available. We'll also make that available to the public. And we also have, which includes a map overlay of the route that this incident took place, a declination letter or a ruling from the OSPA, which is the Office of Special Prosecutions and Appeals. And then we also provided some excerpts from the Alaska statutes which govern the law which governs use of deadly force in the state of Alaska. So again, as the mayor said, we understand the sanctity of life, and we respect the sanctity of life, and that's our job, is to preserve life. Unfortunately, we operate in a realm when we have to make tough decisions, and we're going to see some of those decisions here. But ultimately, those are decisions that the officers in the streets of Fairbanks are making every single day. We're going to watch audio, we're going to watch video. It's an emotionally charged event. It's sensitive, but it's an obligation we have to provide it at this point. So our intent is to disclose as much information as possible and still show respect to Mr. Richards as a human being, his family, his friends, all those kind of things. So we're going to show video up through the last shot that was fired, and we're not going to show anything beyond that. It doesn't explain the incident anymore, and we don't believe, out of respect for Mr. Richards and his family, there's any value to provide that, and we won't be providing that. So before we get started too, I also want to just address, we all know there was the cell phone video that came out on YouTube. And there was a cell phone video that came out shortly after this happened. We have no issues. The Fairbanks Police Department has no issues with people taking cell phone videos or taking video in public places where they have a right to be. My disappointment, our concern comes in is when people attach a narrative to that. They attach information as facts. when they're incorrect. And in this case, there was facts, there was information put out with that cell phone video which caused discontent and were completely false. And so I just want to caution the public, if they take video, that's fine, but be careful of putting information out there that may not be true, because it can be damaging and you don't know what the consequences of that are. And so we all carry around a cell phone, we all carry around a video camera in our pocket now, but what we don't carry with it is discretion, information, and sometimes, in some cases, good judgment. So when you whip out that cell phone and take a video, when you share it, try to exercise those same values, those good judgments, and try to do what's best. So what we're going to see first is we're going to see a video from Sergeant Foster's vehicle. We're going to show that first because the determination that we look at for whether this was right, whether this was proper, is from the perspective of Sergeant Foster. What did he know? What did he reasonably believe to be the facts at the time? So we're going to show that first so you can see, at least from his vehicle perspective, what that is. What I want to caution everyone in, we're seeing a video of the incident, and we have some pretty descriptive and pretty broad video of this incident. But with any video, it shows a portion of the story. It shows a perspective of the story, but it doesn't show the whole story. It doesn't show the experience. It doesn't show the three-dimensional realm that the officer is in. It may not even show what the officer saw or didn't see. The head turns, the eyes move, the camera doesn't. And so if an officer is wearing a camera, which in the case of Officer Elsie on his belt, it faces the way his hips face. It doesn't face the way his head faces. It doesn't face the way his eyes face. And so a video may capture something that the officer doesn't see. It may not capture something the officer does see. And so video is a part of the story, but it is never a complete depiction of the event. And so it's not the only part of the story. So I just want to caution us when we look at this, or when we look at any video moving forward, because this is not the last time that we're going to be together looking at video. Hopefully not for a long time surrounding this, but it's a nationwide phenomenon. It's a nationwide movement, and we have to understand the limitations of video and the limitations of the human mind, the limitations of human vision. So what we're going to see is, like I said, a video from Sergeant Foster's vehicle video system. It's going to last 4 minutes and 50 seconds, roughly. During that time, we're going to have, you're going to hear dispatch information that's coming over the radio. Unfortunately, you're going to hear a slight echo in that because when we produce the video, we're not film editors. So we produce some video. You'll hear the actual police radio in the background, but it wasn't. We weren't able to make. You're going to hear some updates, and I'm just going to tell you what they are because you're watching video and you're trying to process what you hear at the same time. It starts off, dispatch is saying, advising all units to respond to a male with a gun pointing it at a female. And this is to the Alaska Motel. Then you'll hear that shots have been fired. The caller then reports that a male suspect, described as a native male in a white t-shirt, has his girlfriend held hostage. The suspect, the caller reports, and dispatch advises that the suspect fired once at the caller. Then we're told that the female hostage is out of the unit, that EMS has been dispatched and is en route for one victim. They're not advised of what kind of injuries they have. All we know is that shots have been fired, we have a hostage, we have a man with a gun, and now we have a victim that needs medical attention. It was reported to be a robbery. Officers are then calling for 1033 traffic. 1033 traffic means there's an emergency, and you'll hear that in their voice. So not only are we listening to what is said, but how it's said. So you'll hear the urgency in those officers' voices, and they're calling for they need the radio cleared because they need priority to listen to, for everybody to hear what's said. Then you'll hear that the suspect's walking away from officers and ignoring their commands. Then you'll get a series of route updates of where they're going and where the suspect's leading them. Then they'll declare that the suspect has a gun. That's confirmed over the radio. The last radio traffic is that he's got a hostage in front of the prospector. And we talked about the audio, or the audio echo. So I'll go ahead and show that now. Like I said, after that, we'll go through, I'll explain a little bit about what we're going to see in the next video.
Respondent 1546 South Fishman. First subject with a gun pointing it at a female. Please welcome her. Confirm shots have been fired. Responding 1546 Fishman, caller stating a male has his girlfriend held hostage in unit number 16, break. Canadian male, white t-shirt, he fired once at the caller. Ten four, being told now that the female is out of the unit. Responded to 1546 South Fishman. We got the events around. We have one victim. Yes, that's it. 846, we have a caller at the apartment saying that this was a robbery. 1033, 1033. 1033. 1033 traffic. Call you will have a location at 15, you want to wait them for the response time. come around for the tacos. Tacos. So we can sit there and traffic up this way.
So you'll see Mr. Richards appear right here in the white t-shirt. Mr. Solomon Roberts is standing. You can't see him very well behind that sign. This is Sergeant Foster here. So Jill, can you turn the lights on? So that's the complete video from that perspective. So the next video we're going to watch is, again, it's a combined video that has a bit of information in it. It starts with the actual 911 call. So we're going to listen to the 911 call, what the dispatchers had to process, what they had to do. I'll point out later, again, they did a phenomenal job with this phone call. Some of the people on the other end, I think, did a great job of relaying the information to dispatch. So it starts with that 911 call. You'll hear some automated voices in the beginning. That's just data that's attached to the 911 to every 911 call. It doesn't really necessarily have significant meaning to this event. A couple things I want to point out that we'll see on this video. The officers that follow, which are primarily 4 officers, you have initially that start this are Officers Elsie, and that's whose video we're going to watch. We have Officer Gibson, Investigator Stonecipher, and Officer Wellborn. Detective Thompson joins in with this and begins to assist about a quarter of the way through as they're walking. They follow him for 2 minutes and 34 seconds for roughly 1,000 feet. So during this 2 minutes and 34 seconds, they ask Mr. Richards to drop the gun, to stop, don't do this, some type of either order or plea for him to change his behavior approximately 55 times. 55. And that's a number that's difficult to count because is drop the gun, drop the gun, drop the gun, is that 1 or 3? So it's an estimation, it's an approximate. If it's 40, if it's 70, either way, 55 times is the rough count that I got. A lot, over 2 minutes and 34 seconds. You'll see Officer Gibson, then Officer Elsie, approach him even closer to get in range to try to disable him with a taser. Both those were unsuccessful. They didn't work. They obviously put themselves at an even greater risk to try to end it that way, but it wasn't successful. We will see that video in its entirety from when it starts until, again, that second shot. Inserted in that is a few things to help with the totality of the event. What we've inserted into that is surveillance video still images from Prospector Outfitters, from their building video. And then we've inserted and slowed down Sergeant Foster's vehicle video of when James Richards grabs Solomon Roberts by the arm and begins to pull him with him. So we saw that to begin with, but you can see that Mr. Richards in the first video has a clear path. He's walking across Cushman. He makes a 180-degree turn toward police car and police officers with their lights on to go to Mr. Richards, or Mr. Roberts, who's a 70-year-old Alaska Native male who walks with a cane. He walks all the way around him to put Mr. Roberts between, he puts Mr. Roberts between himself and the pursuing officers, walks all the way around him. To do that, he has to grab Solomon Roberts by the arm as he's pulling him along and switch and put the gun in his other hand to keep him between himself and the officers, and then continue on. And again, so we're gonna insert that in there just to show you. But the video from Officer Elsie is shown in its entirety. There's just some things inserted into it. And again, the video stopped at the same point, but it has a different angle.
Call 1 on Tuesday, August 30th, 2016 at 1:40 p.m. with a GMT offset of negative 480 minutes. HIV extension is 139. 911 City. 911. Hey, how's it going? He has a gun. Yes. Where is he at? Up at room 16.
slow this down a little bit. Again, Mr. Richards here, Mr. Roberts here. It's a little easier to see because James Richards has a white t-shirt on. Mr. Roberts has a black shirt. You'll see him pull his arm across his body to pull him along. Right here. And what's a stereotypical escort position for us? He pulls him along and he grabs him by the elbow and continues to pull him along when he switches hands. Switches and puts a gun in his other hand. So this is from the prospector. We can see the gun in his hand here. You see him looking back at the officers with the gun in his hand there. So Sergeant Foster's behind this gray car right here. Good, we've already seen this. This is a culmination of all the video. So that's the video that we have that we're going to make available. Again, we can see that this happens along the Cushman Street corridor, one of the major arterial roads in the city of Fairbanks. It's coming up on the Prospector Outfitter store at 1:40 in the afternoon. You can see where this happens. It's right at the corner of the store leading to the front of the store. If you're familiar with that, with the Prospector, one of the doors to the building is right at that corner. That's where people exit the building after they typically check out. That's where the cashiers are. It's a store that at 1 o'clock in the afternoon usually has at least a dozen, between employees and customers, has a dozen people in it, so that, as well as a crowded parking lot. So this was a demarcation line that, although this incident was justified in a series of points throughout this incident, it continued to evolve into a more dangerous situation with every step. The more you continue on along a busy street, you saw how much traffic was on Cushman. You know that people are typically in the Prospector parking lot, allowing someone to enter into a building that's crowded with merchandise that has a number of employees and patrons in it, or customers, just continues to evolve. And so it's an incident that just had to end this way because of the choices that Mr. Richards made. So again, this is not our goal. This is not what we want to happen. These officers go out to protect and preserve life every single day. And unfortunately, on this day, it required them to take a life to preserve life. And that's what they do. They make these decisions every single day. Fortunately, every single day doesn't end like this because people make different choices. Mr. Richards was asked dozens and dozens of times to stop. He had a choice. He made a choice to take us down this path, which thrust Officer Foster to make a choice to put a difficult choice. Every single officer that was involved had a difficult choice. And so we share in the sorrow of Mr. Richards' loss with his family and his friends, but I hold fast that the officers did the right thing and they made hard choices, and it was up to him to stop it a different way, and James Richards decided not to. I want to thank our dispatch center. You listened to the 911 call. It was a mess, and they did a phenomenal job. And it's, again, something they do every day. They're taking calls like this to try to figure out chaos and try to make order out of chaos. And you listen, they did great. They relayed pertinent information, very timely. They had the officers going immediately. They had EMS going immediately. It's a lot to process in a short period of time to try to figure out, what did the lady say? I don't know what's going on. They're trying to make order, give it to responding officers from a caller who doesn't know what's going on. And we're trying to make decisions, life and death decisions, out of this chaos, and they did phenomenal. Thank EMS and the assisting law enforcement agencies who came to help. Again, EMS is trying to come in here and treat patients. They can't get into this scene until it's secure. Until we resolve this gunman, we can't get EMS in there because they can't respond into this dangerous scenario and risk getting shot. The FPD detectives, they did a phenomenal job of investigating this case, making a thorough investigation, giving it to the Office of Special Prosecutions. I want to thank Greg Olson with the DA's office for being the liaison between ourselves and OSPA, Rob Henderson at the Office of Special Prosecutions, and Mr. Henderson himself. You'll read that document. I believe it's very well written. It's easy to read. It breaks down the event. It explains what happened. I want to thank the public for their patience and their confidence. We strive to do things correctly, and sometimes that's not always quickly. We're paving new ground and new road in the state of Alaska for video. This is something new, and so we're having to jump some of these hurdles and figure out some of this as we go along as well, because people aren't doing this anywhere else in the state of Alaska like we are. So hopefully this will put a lot of questions to rest about what happened and the legitimacy of what happened. And ultimately, I want to thank the officers involved. Officer Elsie, Officer Gibson, Investigator Stonecipher, Officer Doug Wellborn, Detective Thompson, and specifically Sergeant Foster. Clearly, I've watched this before today. I watched it, and I was proud to be a member of the Fairbanks Police Department. And I was proud of these guys. They did a phenomenal job. They put themselves out there. They put themselves out there for the city of Fairbanks, for the people in Fairbanks, and unfortunately Mr. Richards made a lot of bad choices that day, and he put a lot of people in danger. And that's their job. They put themselves between people making bad choices, putting people in danger, and the rest of the city of Fairbanks, and the rest of the citizens that might be harmed from that. That's what they did. And unfortunately, that resulted in Mr. Richards losing his life. But the officers performed with excellence that day, and I'm proud of them and proud to be part of this organization. So, thank you. So, we've got just a few minutes for questions, if anybody has questions.
Had he not grabbed a hostage, do you think they would have used deadly force or attempted to tase him again?
I can't answer that. There's a lot of what ifs. I can say if he had not grabbed a hostage, it still would have been justified in using deadly force. And you'll see that. That's why we provided those Alaska statutes and highlighted the applicable sections. Each one is a standalone justification for the use of deadly force. Clearly, if he didn't grab an elderly male and use him as a shield between himself and the officers, he was still a significant and imminent threat to the public. So we will never know the answer to that, but I can tell you that it still would have been completely justified. All right. Well, thank you for coming.